So one brief thing to go over from yesterday, because I noticed that there was kind of a mistake that I made. If we go back to the home controller, again, this is on the party invites application. Evan, can I get your attention?
Yes.
Okay. As we're looking through that, I've actually got these backwards because I actually want it to go to myself from whoever filled in the form. So these are actually backwards. So this should be from, and that should be to. Because I want to know who responded to it, and that was instead sending it to the person who responded, which is really not the person who needs to get the email. Okay. So there's that. So looking back at what we kind of ended class on yesterday, we started by building out this task to send people out party reminders. Okay. So where I had you go with that is I wanted you to build out a notification, an email that would go out to everybody that's on that guest list. Essen, what's up?
I was showing him what you talked about with the from Tuesday.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That should be that way. Okay. So to build that out, obviously we know if we want to use the database, we need to have access first and foremost to the database. So we don't have that yet, so that's where I'm going to start. I'm going to say open up a connection with the database. So var db is equal to new party invite database. And I need to then include that the models namespace. Okay. So we have that. The next thing I want to know is who responded yes. Okay. So let's call this variable responses. I'm going to go to the database. I'm going to go to the guest responses table, right? And then remembering I want to filter out people that are marked as not attend, right? So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to add in a where clause there. So I'm going to say where, which I need to add in link because it's not in here, using system.link up top. Okay. So I want to say where that will attend is true, where they've said that they will attend. Okay, so I'm going to leave that as is for, let's see. Oh, this needs to be equals true. Because I've made it unnullable. So I'm not going to make that into a list as of yet. I will need to in a bit, but I'm not going to do that at this moment. So we'll come back to that when we find out what we actually need to do that. So the initial kind of version of this, I'm going to build it up using the code that we had previously, which is like so, and that's using this create single email method at the end. But then we're going to do some refactoring with that to make it a little bit more optimal. So I'm going to start with a for each, and I'm going to loop through the responses. Okay. Now if I look at the code that's in here, there's a few things that I know. I know that every time through the loop for every person, I don't need to get the environment variable, and I don't need to grab the client every time. So those things I can easily move outside of the loop. Does that make sense? Those are things we don't need to do for every single user. I can create one client and reuse it, and I can grab the environment variable once and reuse it. Does that make sense? Okay. As far as the from and to, they actually would be reversed in this case. because it will be coming from me, and it will be going to the person who entered the RSVP. I'm still missing some usings. There we go. Okay. Now, for the body of the email, I might say or maybe flip it around. The actual body of that email doesn't matter at the moment. I'm just putting some placeholder text in there. Now we do have a little bit of an issue down here at the bottom because I've told it to kind of reuse the same name twice. So I've got the response here that I'm looping through, but I've got another variable called response, not the same thing. In reality, I'm not using that variable, so I'm just going to remove it. And I'm just going to say await client.send email async. Okay. So that basic structure works, right? So we say grab all the users from the database that have said that they will attend. Loop through them, and then I'm going to loop through them and send each one of those persons an email. Didn't I have this on, I think I had this on light yesterday, didn't I? Yep. I'm kind of wondering how it got turned back then. Unless it's picking it up from my office computer and syncing it with my office computer. Which is entirely possible.
You're signed in with the same account?
Might be that it's somehow syncing it across that. So that's the gist of that, okay? Now, you'll notice down there I'm calling create single email, right? So create single email says create a single email and sends it out. That's not the most efficient way to send emails. In fact, usually I want to send a bunch of all these emails at once, especially if I'm talking about having emails in the thousands. This would be very slow. It's probably fine for 10 or so emails, but it would be relatively slow for a few thousand emails. So there's a different method that we can call. I'm going to kind of move this out of the loop a second so we can look at it. If I look at .create, there's a few of these different methods. So there's create multiple emails to multiple recipients, and that's going to send a different email to everybody, but it's going to send it to multiple people at once. There's also one here that uses a template. So it uses a different template for everybody and sends it to different people. Again, we haven't talked about templates yet. Versus this one that uses one template but sends it to multiple people. So what I'm going to start with, though, there's the one we've used before. The one I want to use here is going to be this one. Send a single email to multiple recipients. So I'm going to start with that. Okay. So what that's going to do is it's going to send the same email to everybody on the list. Okay. So that method takes a few parameters. Okay. So the first thing it takes is a from, and then it takes a list of addresses that we're going to send it to, and it also needs the content of the email in the subject line. So for things like that, we know that we're going to have the same content in the subject line. I'm going to go ahead and let's just take all this stuff and get rid of the loop. So that's the loop I used to have. I'm going to comment that out and pull all this stuff out. So the first thing I need is a from. So that's the same for everybody. The next thing I need is a list of to addresses of where am I going to send emails to. We haven't built that list yet, so I'll come back to that in a second, but I'm just going to write the word list there for a moment. I also need to add in the subject, the HTML body, and the plain text body, which for now I'm just giving it the same thing. Let me move this down. Hold on. So for the purposes of generating that list of emails that email addresses we want to send it to, right? When we're doing a loop, you can kind of see here's that line of code that we are using to build the to address, right? So what I want to do is I want to build that list. I'm going to use select to go do that very quickly. So if I say var to's, those are the people I'm sending it to. I'm going to start with that list of responses that I have up previously, and I'm going to say dot select and we're going to say X is new email address, and then that first one is going to be the email. The second argument is the name of the person. I need a second parenthesis and close that out. Oh, but that does have to be a list. So if I look at the arguments there, it does need to be a list. So on that, I do need to call toList.
Why do we use body twice?
Because one's the plain text and one's the HTML. For the moment, just to keep things simple, I'm using the same text. I just don't have any styling for either of those. So I'm just using the same value for both. So that's kind of how we can restructure that. So we're sending all the emails kind of at once as one blast, which means that we don't necessarily have to wait for all that to happen. We just kind of hand it off to SendGrid, and it takes care of sending those emails over time. They probably won't be sent immediately when we tell it to do it, especially if we got several thousand emails, but it will do it over time. Okay. We'll spread that out as need be. So that's the basic structure there. We've built this, we have built this job now that we can run. We still haven't hooked it up necessarily to run at the time we want. Actually, I think we did. There we go. So if I go back here, party reminder, I'm going to actually sell it just to run once, because I only want it to run one time. So I'm going to sell it to run now, which means it's going to run as soon as I start the program. Okay. So hopefully all the emails that you have there listed as will attend are ones that are your emails that you can check. Yes?
AWD2, I'm still getting an error on the response to email name.
You're still getting an error on
Party reminder.
on your party reminder?
Yep. Response.
Oh. Oh yeah. There we go. Cause I changed how I build up the twos. Okay. That should solve that. So I'm gonna hit run on this.
What'd you do with the list?
What list?
In bar message?
So I changed this to twos, right? So that's twos is that list of twos that we just generated. And let's just see if that email came to me. Here, run with the debugger attached. Oh, that looks interesting. So I am getting a constructor. I am getting an exception here. So one or more errors occurred when I tried to run this. So I'm going to guess when I'm doing this select that it's not happy with doing that here because it's still trying to do that effectively in C# land, I mean in SQL. So I think what I need to do, at least if I'm reading the error correctly, is I need to do a little toList up at the top. Check that real quick to see if that is the right answer. There. Okay, that went through. So there's the email that I got when that went off. And that should have come to anybody you had it listed as will attend. Okay.
I'm not getting that.
You need to make sure you hit execute.
Oh, you did.
Yeah. So you can see the log. Otherwise you can't see the log. So there it said it went through successfully. So check whatever email you had listed. And if that doesn't work, I might suggest you try a new API key, because I suspect that there's something up with the API key. Said you're still getting in there.
My account is risky, according to SiteGrid, and I got to close that.
Yeah. And then I try creating a new one, and then it immediately close that one.
You're calling your own method.
Yeah, I gotta create it on there.
See what method
Create
I'm
on your
calling up
phone.
there? I'm calling create single email to multiple recipients.
Why?
That's what I was assuming. Yeah. That's why.
Yeah, create single.
Probably because we were all created at once. You probably thought we were five.
Oh, because you didn't move the exception.
Okay.
You're using the test. So go back to the
Create with your
controller.
phone.
Yeah, well.
And see, we put this in the test.
They got banned.
See what would happen. That's where you made that message.
I mean, I don't see them off of this.
Yeah, that's what I got too. Mr. Smith, I think
Yep.
the problem I think is that we all created our accounts at the same time. Because
Maybe.
I'm no longer authorized
We're
on
all
my account,
banned.
and then I made a new one, and then they immediately banned me.
We can't do anything.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not authorized.
Yeah.
So all you can do is create it on your phone, and then we would all have the different IP.
Talking about SendGrid?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're saying they immediately banned you?
Yeah, they put a ticket in, and what it says is, in an effort to protect the integrity of our service, SendGrid's automated system performed risk analysis accounts. As a result of the analysis, your account has been classified as risky and subsequently closed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, you're right. You might try your phone so you have a different IP address, but you might also try staggering it. So not everybody's creating new accounts at the same time.
Yeah, so I need to get rid of this throw.
Yeah, you do. Because that was just to test it to see that it was working. Yeah, and that would explain why mine worked because I created it before class.
Did you use the same email?
No, I didn't. I used it.
Who should I check? What do I check? My email?
Did you create an account already?
For the
SendGrid?
SendGrid?
Because
No.
you said you were gonna do that.
They freaking won't let me,
Because you said you were gonna use your
for
inside ranking.
inside ranking.
Yeah, so what happened with that?
Really didn't like inside ranking email.
Right,
I'll
but-
do it.
okay.
I thought I had it up.
Alright, if you would do it from your phone then. Because he is right, it could be that everybody's coming through as the same IP address. Because you're all coming through as Rankin's IP address, as far as the outside world is concerned. Yep.
Okay, so I'm not, if I were receiving the message of the, party, ready, start, going on the
That's fine. Yeah, that's just logging into the console to say, hey,
Oh,
it actually
okay.
worked, right?
Okay.
Because then you can see if it worked, you should see that in here, but you're seeing this error. See that?
That didn't work.
Didn't work. Okay, so what you're missing, you need to add at the end of this, you need to add to list. Because the problem is it's trying to do that select and it's sequence stall. So we need to get it in the position. I told this, so hit enter, or you can replace that one. We need to say schedule particular item, and that's gonna be an expert reference. I mean, the secondary to that is a template argument. So it's a generic method that we need to call. There's two versions, that's the non-generic versus the generic, and there we tell it the class. So we say public sure right there. Does that make sense? So it's a generic argument, and then you do parentheses. And then you say two run ones. Version on that. So then
I mean, if you say that, they're probably gonna end up charging you.
You said what?
Probably, since this is normally a paid service, if it's for an education thing, they're probably going to charge you for it.
Usually most companies are happy to say, oh, you're going to teach your students how to use our tools. Here you go, here's free stuff. So maybe I just didn't go through the proper channels.
Trying to create a new one or something. It didn't work with that, right? Cause I made mine initially for, change it. Let's see, and also mine.
Like that was only temporary for you. It's brutal.
So what do you mean? So you created a new account.
It's letting me like do stuff, like I'm about to make another API key, but
Mm-hmm.
like a little banner that says like it's temporarily under review.
Hmm.
I submitted a ticket just like describing what I'm doing. Maybe the support will see that and respond to me. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if that's where we're at, I want to just kind of keep going then, and hopefully we can resolve that before too long. But I want to keep going with this then, especially since that's kind of one person at a time then. So when we want to, this here will let us have it set up in a place where we're sending the same email to everybody, right? But oftentimes I may want to add the user's information into that email. Does that make sense? Oftentimes that's one thing I need to do. So in order to do that, I actually need to call a different method. And the other method is create multiple emails to multiple recipients. So it's going to send a different email to everybody. Okay. Now, if I remember right, the way to set that up, and let me just test this real quick before you type too much of this in, is I'm going to put in curly braces around the name of the person. Again, I'm not 100% on this being the right way or not, because I'm struggling to kind of find the right documentation for it. So I'm going to say name. So hi name, and I'm just going to add that in before that. Now this method here takes an additional argument. So if I want to call this method, there's one more thing I need to add in instead. And the last thing it needs is this list of dictionaries, okay? List of dictionaries, which is going to tell it what to replace. Okay, so in order to, let's see, what do they call that? They call that, definition. They're calling that substitution, so that's what I'm going to call it as well. Okay, so var substitutions is equal to what I need to build there. So on the outer side, it needs to be a list. On the inner side of that, it needs to be a dictionary. Okay. So what I'm going to say is, so for each response, I end up needing to create one of these objects. So I'm going to say select, and I'm going to say, sorry, responses.select, and we're going to map that to a dictionary. So I'm going to say new, I'm going to say new dictionary string to string I need to add in that using there. There we go. So I'm going to build that out and add that down here. And this also says list of subjects. So the subjects also, according to this, is going to be different. Okay, so I have to do that as well. And specifically, I need to say var subjects is equal to responses dot select. I'm just going to give all of those the same subject line for now. Which should be that same subject here, basically. So effectively, if I wanted to, I could remove the subject up here and just replace the text in there as being, that's the subject line for everybody. But I'm going to leave that as is. So I'm going to use that same subject there. Okay, so I need to change this to be subjects. That's that list of subjects. So that's enough to make the signature happy. I still haven't, if I've made those changes, I still haven't switched it over to send a different email to everybody because I still haven't filled in that substitution dictionary. Okay. And do that in a minute. Okay. So just to think about really what's happening here. So remember, select is always used to map one thing to another. So in this case, I'm saying map the, for every response, add in the same subject, map it to that, and add that to a list. That's maybe not the simplest way to do it. There are other ways to do that, but it makes it easy for me to later then go back and change the subject to be different for everybody. On the substitution side, so we're ending up, we can kind of see we start with responses. For each response, we're creating this dictionary object, and then we're turning that into a list, right? So lists you're kind of familiar with. They're, you know that they're arrays that kind of can grow. They're like arrays that can grow. But does anybody remember what a dictionary is? You may have had some introduction to it, but not much.
Isn't it essentially just a key value pair?
It's a set of key value pairs. True.
It's a type of generic collection.
Okay, that's also true. How is it different from a list? What's one important difference between it and a list?
The keys.
The keys, yeah, okay. What about them?
You can access an element through the key.
Okay, so you're right. So let me elaborate on that a little bit. So if I'm working with an array, right? So let's say my array is called things. Okay, if I want to access the first element in the array, I'm going to access 0, right? If I want to access another element in the array, I just put a number in there, okay? Right, but remember with arrays, I can only use integer indexes, right? And they have to be ascending. I can't have gaps, right? So if I want to have a 0 and a 7, I have to have an array that's at least what size?
At least 8.
At least 8, right? Otherwise that's invalid, right? I can't have just an array of size 2 that has 0 and 7. Does that make sense? Okay, so I can't do that with a regular array. Lists work the same way. Everything has to start at 0 and go up, and I have to have all the indexes in between. They just can grow and shrink and grow, okay? So the difference with a dictionary is these indexes can be whatever I want. With a dictionary, that index can be anything. And in fact, I can have, with a dictionary, I can have just 2 elements. I want to say I want to have 0 and 7, or I want to have 0 and 1 million. And I don't have to have a million entries to have 0 and a million. Does that make sense? Sort of? You see where we're going with there? There's kind of a mapping between the keys and the values that is not like I have to have a spot for every possible value. Does that make sense? Because if I had to have a spot for every possible value, this wouldn't work for strings or anything else. Okay. So when I'm working with my dictionary, I can do things like say, hey, I want to access the index name and get a value out, or I want to access the value email and get a value out. Does that make sense? So I can use a string in there with a dictionary. Okay. So when we're dealing with generic types, right? So if we deal with a list, right? You remember there's that square kind of brackets, the angle brackets that I have that tell me what type of list it is, right? So if I have a list that's a list product, right? We know this is the kind of thing that that list holds, right? So that's a list of products, right? If I tell you I've got a dictionary, and we say string product, okay? When I create a dictionary, I need to actually specify 2 types. Okay, so the first one here we refer to is that's the type of the key. The second one is the type of the value. So it maps from strings to products. Does that make sense? Where this is a list of products, this is a list of mappings from string to products. Okay, so that first argument's the input, this is our keys, and that's our output. So if we're looking at the dictionary that we're creating here, see both of those are strings. So they map from one string to another string. So for instance, I'm going to say I want to substitute wherever I put name in curly brackets with the name of the person. Or if I put email, I want to substitute the email. Okay, so to build up this dictionary, I'm going to try and use an initializer list. Because I think, if I remember right, I can. It's just maybe a bit to figure out what my arguments have to be. Let's see, new. Dictionary. Let's see. No, that's not what I need to say. Key value entry. Yeah, key value pair. So the way that dictionary works, effectively you can kind of think of them as a list of key value pairs. So you have the key and the value in a pair. So I can build this dictionary up by giving it a series of those things, if I remember right. Although it doesn't seem to be very happy with me right now.
I thought we could just do curly brackets with commas in them.
That's what I'm trying to get to. There's no argument given that corresponds to the parameter of value.
You need to give it the key and value. That's a syntax error.
Yeah. X dot. Just trying to figure out what the
Can
right.
you put curly braces inside the curly braces?
Maybe. I'm just trying to remember what the correct syntax for doing the shorthand. There it is. Yeah. That's the syntax. So I want to say select new dictionary. X, I'm going to say the name is that x.name. And if we ever had if we wanted to say replace the email, or the phone number, so putting that in there will allow me to substitute those tokens in wherever I need to into the body of the message. See if I can maybe push this down and make that a little bit more readable. No, that didn't really work. I'm just going to leave that there. Oh, okay. I see how that works. Okay. So that's kind of how we build up that substitution table. Now, I did try it real quick, and here's what I got. It looks like it came in as, you see curly braces, this curly braces Paul Smith. So it did substitute it. But I think what I needed to do, because I wanted it to replace the curly brace, I need to actually put curly braces down here. Yeah, so that's the trick. Is you do, if it's characters you want to use up there in your message to replace, you would also want to put those down there, because it's literally looking for the word name otherwise. Actually, not exactly. Questions? Scott?
I don't even know how to see if it works. I have no way.
is we'll need to make sure you have an account set up, right? So we can get that. We'll have to get that figured out.
So if we did use that Randy email last time, don't use that anymore?
Is that account still working? Can you still log into that account?
I haven't tried it as well.
Okay, then try it. Then try it. See if you can log into an account, see what the status of that account is. Okay. So yes, we do need to get to a point where you all have accounts and that's all working. But my question was, can you understand what's happening with the code? So what I'm doing here, right? So I put curly braces name in the body of the message, right? And effectively down here, I'm telling it, anytime you see curly braces name, replace that with the user's name. If you see curly braces email, replace that with email. If you say curly braces phone, replace that with phone. So that way we're sending a different email potentially to each of our customers. That make sense? But we're effectively sending it in one big batch rather than sending one email, one email, one email, one email, right? So we hand this whole batch off to SendGrid, and SendGrid takes care of the rest and making that efficient rather than us having to do all that stuff on our side.
So there's going to be, if I have two attendees for my party,
Yep.
there's going to be 6 indexes for this dictionary.
Correct.
So
Well, no, there's going to be, no, you're wrong. No, not entirely true. So the response is if you have 2 attendees, right?
mm-hmm.
So there's going to be 2 entries in the substitution list. So
Oh.
each of those entries is a single dictionary.
Okay.
So I have 2 dictionaries. Each dictionary has 3 entries.
I got you.
Does that make sense? You
Yeah.
have a dictionary that's inside of a list. I do want to look at, there's another app that I worked on building, which is this newsletter app to kind of get a weekly newsletter going. I think it's probably best if we finish up trying to get everybody accounts before I move on with that. So I think I'm going to put this on hold here a minute while we try to get that taken care of. If we don't get that taken care of till Monday, then that is what it, or tomorrow or whatever, then it is what it is. But probably doesn't make sense to go with the newsletter until we have everybody running. So I'm going to pause this here. There we go. So we've got everybody up and running, so everybody can send emails. What we've done so far is we've hard-coded the message and the subject line and all those kind of things into the actual code. So one of the things that we can do on the SendGrid website is actually use their GUI editor to kind of design emails ahead of time, which gives the like non-technical users and graphic designers more of an input to change that. So that's going to create what we call a template. Now, if you're looking at the SendGrid website, there's 2 places here that kind of do similar things. So if I go under Design Library, you'll get to something like this, which will let you design emails. And you can get a few kind of templates roughly off of the shelf that they've made. Now, what I saw from kind of playing around with this however doesn't create a quote-unquote template that you can send through code. This creates a template that you can send manually from the website. So to actually get one that you can send through code, you actually need to go under the templates section. So just to clarify, you want to go under templates, not design library. Does that make sense? So if you go under design library, that's for like a marketing campaign, versus if you go into templates transactional, this is where you'll get these templates that you can use. So if I want to go in here and make a new template, if you have access to an account, go ahead and jump in here and play around with this. I know that not everybody has access to an account right now, but I'm going to go in here and create a template. let's call this party invite. And I'm going to say save. So we need to give the template a name. And you'll see it's kind of got its ID down here. We'll need that in a minute. But I'm going to say add version underneath that. Okay, so to add a version, you'll see that there's two different options in here. There's either the design editor or the code editor. Okay, so we can go to the code editor that'll manually let us configure all of the HTML that we want. Or we can go to this design editor and kind of drag and drop. So that's the route I'm going to go here right now. So I'm going to try the design editor. Okay. When we get into here, our first thing we want to do is create the subject line. Let me actually grab that from the code. So I'm going to say something like that. I would advise everybody use a different subject name, but that's the one I'm going to use. Okay. There's also something in here called the pre-header right beneath that. That pre-header is going to be what shows up as sort of the hint if you're previewing it. So when you see it in your inbox, it'll show the subject line and the pre-header instead of like the first few lines of the text. So that's what that's about. So I might put a pre-header in like that. I'm just going to call this V1 as my template name, or party invite, party reminder. So you can put some text in there. Okay, so I'm going to hit save the template. So that's the basic stuff that you have to fill in there to get started. Is you need a subject line and you need a pre-header. Okay. We can also then go to the build tab up here on the top left. And that's where we can add in different what they call modules. Okay. So one module that's already in there by default is this one at the bottom, and that's the unsubscribe module. And you'll see that it's already got some text in here, right? So like, let's say we wanted to have some info about the address, where it's coming from, that's already in there. I'm going to go turn that sender address off by going in here and setting address line off. So that's all that will be in here. And I'm going to go back to build. Let's say we want to drag in some text. Again, it isn't really important at all that you use the same text that I do. You can use whatever text you want, but I'm just putting in some simple formatting in there.
How'd you get it now? Or you try to click on the, or did you add a module?
Yeah, I added a text module. Yeah, just drag in a text module. Yep, and then you can put whatever text you want in there. There's also a toolbar up top, and you can see, so for instance, I can make tomorrow as bold. If I go in here, select it, that's up there. So say I want to make 7 p.m. bold as well. Oh. There. So it gives me some formatting and some styling options. I can also add in, for instance, images. See if I can drag in an image module or not. There it goes. There's an image module. Choose an image. Oh, let's use that one.
Like building out like HTML.
Yeah. So we'll actually build out the HTML for this, and we could potentially look at that. I'm going to hit save. By the way, once I've got this up and running, I can go over, you see preview up in the top left, if I can get your attention for 1 minute. If you go up to preview, you'll see kind of a preview of it. The important thing that you'll see here as well, there's these 3 tabs. So one is desktop, one is mobile, and the other is text. So it'll actually generate all 3 of those versions for you, and let you add in images and things like that.
Is that an image box module?
That's an image module, yeah. So I just dragged in an image, and then I used a file that I already uploaded. Try another. Let's see, can
There's
I?
a text center.
Huh?
There's a text center.
Oh, yep. I could probably do that. So if I go grab all the text, it's up there. I'm going to change this image though. Library, choose an image to upload, cactus. There we go. Oh, that one's awfully big.
Can you crop it?
Yeah, somehow. I don't know if I can crop it from here.
There's a side with.
Yeah. 50%. I don't know if that actually did anything. Oh, that did it. So 25%. Yeah. So the point is setting this up gives us a way to kind of have a designer for the email. As far as actually using this in code, actually turns out to be really, really easy. So if I gave you an API key, if you're using my API key, you should be able to use the same ID. So the ID that we need to use is this one up here. So if you created your own template, that's where you'll get it. I'm going to go ahead and send that to everybody here in a minute once we get the code. But basically, we can just use that number now and send out that email. Okay. So if I go back to the code, okay. So what we need to change, this method that we're calling here, we need to call a slightly different method. So I'm going to comment this out. And I'm going to say string template ID. For now, I'm just going to put ... in there as kind of a placeholder. Come back to putting the right number in there. And I'm going to say var message is equal to mail helper dot create temp single template email. I think, is that going to be the one? Template data. Yeah, so I want to do create multiple template emails to multiple recipients. That's the one I want to call. Okay, so similar to the previous one that we called, that's going to be from, and then our list of twos, and the next thing is actually, let's see, the template ID. So that's where I'm going to put the template ID. And then it finally needs dynamic template data. And I think that we can probably put substitutions there although I'm not 100% sure about that. Oh, okay. So in order to make that work, we have to change how substitution is a little bit. So rather than creating a dictionary, I'm going to comment that out, kind of duplicate it. In order to make that work for this version, I think that here. So it's going to be new. Because what it looks like it needs, yeah, it needs, there we go. Okay, because what it's telling me here is it needs a list of objects instead of a list of dictionaries. Name, email. So not convert from generic list. Oh. There we go. I do have to tell it to convert to a list of objects instead of a list of anonymous objects, so that's why I have to add that in there. That's what makes it happy down here, that it'll be a list of objects. Okay, I'm going to go grab that template ID again. So that's what I'm going to end up with there. Okay. So I grabbed it from the website. If you're using my API key, you won't have access to that, so I'm going to email you that number. Write multiple template emails to multiple recipients.
I got that ID in there.
Uh-huh. Do you have this part here? To list object?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
You gotta save it and then.
Save it to the transactional. So wait.
Create multiple emails to multiple recipients.
Okay. Eston, Graham, Dalton, Alex, Evan, and Jeremy. Okay. Okay. So you should have an email with the template ID that I'm using here. And I sent that to your Insight Rankings solution. I'm going to go ahead and give this a quick try, just to make sure all my ducks are in order. What's up, Scott?
Oh, I was just sitting on that error, I don't know.
Okay, I'll be there in a minute. I want to just see if this is actually working the way I want it to or not.
Okay, didn't replace man for mine.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was suspecting it might not do. Also made my text black.
Also, I didn't have an image.
Yeah, mine showed up like this. I don't know if anybody else showed up like that.
Mine did as well.
Mine worked. Except for name.
Hmm.
My name just says name.
Yeah.
Mine looks great. I got cactus and all.
What about,
Well, my
did
Gmail
you
looks fine.
send it to Inside Rankin?
Yeah, Inside Ranking's different, but the Gmail looks good.
Okay.
Although it does say name, yeah.
Oh yeah, inside ranking is pretty AIDS.
Outlook is not working.
The big part is tomorrow. Focus. Hope to see
Why is it not wanting me to open up Gmail? Do I already have it open? There's that.
See, I heard you say my name earlier, and then you said, "Oh, I have to tell it."
Yeah, the image works, but not the template.
Hmm.
What?
Deceit.
What is that?
So funny.
I've never heard of it. Ever paid for it? What's about it?
And apparently I can't get to Gmail right now. That's interesting.
Oh, so
Check it from my phone.
Is it kind of like a mafia? Or like you actually like play on the game?
Okay. Yeah, so everything went through successfully to Gmail. I'm not entirely sure. Yeah. So that may take some research, but as far as getting the actual template, okay. So that may take some work to figure out the actual substitutions. I don't know exactly what we have to put in there. It may be that they have to be square brackets. I mean, I guess I could try that real quick. Let's try SendGrid. I'm going to change that template real quick. Although it looks like this computer's off the internet, unless I'm mistaken. I'm not sure.
There's an export HTML option.
Yeah, I'm just getting.
Which you could use the other, instead of using the template, you could use the export HTML.
CMD. Looks like my machine got disconnected. Okay, where is That's interesting. I can't get back up the SendGrid. Okay, I might have to reboot this machine. Yeah, or at least Chrome. Oh, there we go. Chrome just needed a restart. So out of curiosity, going back to here. Okay, I need to go to templates, transactional. Edit it. I think there's something else I have to put in there. Yeah, so you're right, there is an export if you wanted to export it. But what I'm trying to get to would be to just, I don't know if that needs to be square brackets. I'll try that one more time with the square brackets.
I think it's hyphen hyphen. I'm trying to look up
You
the
said
website.
hyphen hyphen on the sides?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's something that we need to delineate the start and end of the token. I can try hyphen hyphen. Let's see if that works. There. No, it's not hyphen hyphen. I think there's something, I'm gonna suspect that there's a different way of doing it. Settings.
Oh.
Yep.
Also, another thing, the unsubscribe button is just text and not a link.
Yeah, I think there's some stuff you have to do to make that work. I haven't had a look setting that up yet. But I haven't figured out where that setting is yet. So,
It looks like even on.
mm-hmm.
It looks like they're using hyphen hyphen in the code on our side as well.
Oh. Oh.
We're doing hyphen hyphen on the.
There's like a set substitution wrappers method. So I think that's why there's a disconnect there.
Maybe on the mail helper method.
Yeah, I think that,
Or is it on?
I think you can do like message that set. No, that's not right.
Set template data.
So template data, that's what we're giving it though.
No, that's in the
Nope, not there. No. So this looked right. Substitution tags will work in the subject line, body of email, and in unique arguments. Okay, so they're using dashes here. Okay, yep, so they're putting the same character on both sides. So whatever character we put on the one side, we need to put on the other side. I can't use that.
You would need to make it a string
What do you mean?
if you wanted to use dash.
Yeah, but I can't do that as long as it's an object like this. Now, one curiosity, I wonder if I just go back to the dictionary and I use that. Yeah. I wonder what happens if I do that. Let me go change the template real quick to be curly braces. And then try that. A little bit of trial and error. Nope. That still didn't do it. So there's got to be some magic to it that I'm not fully aware of.
It does say when passing substitution, please make sure to only use strings as shown in our examples.
Yeah. So what they mean is don't use integers. You can't use integers and other types. But we have the name, the email, and the phone. They're all strings. So why those aren't substituting, I'm not 100% sure. Either way. So the big parts that I wanted to kind of cover, I think we've hit a lot of those points. So one thing that we wanted to go over is the general process of sending emails through SendGrid. So we've got that working now. The other thing I wanted to go over was how to use that Fluent Scheduler to set up things to happen, not based on what the user does or when they interact with your site, but to go in on some schedule. So we've kind of seen that, right? So we built up that party reminder, and then if we wanted that to go out, say on a weekly basis, we just go into the job registry and we just change that part of it, right? So we have enough to kind of make our own schedule of things happening. And that can be a lot of things, in fact. We can use this Fluent Scheduler not just to do things like send emails, we can also use them to audit the system or do some sort of different data things that I need to do. Let's say I need to update some data every week or different things that may need to happen with the database. All those kind of things we can set up with this structure, right? So that'll work for anything that needs to happen outside of the user directly interacting with the system. And then we looked a little bit at templates, and you can see there's a lot of benefit to them. There may be a little bit more work to figure out how to get everything to work. There's some gotchas for sure there, but it can make things a lot easier because once you get it up and running, then theoretically your non-developer people can go in and change that email, right? You don't have to go change the code in the application because it's all it knows is that number. So in theory, you should be able to change the email without changing the code, which is great because that frequently becomes a problem if you need to change the code. Okay, so I'm going to leave it there. I think I've already posted your labs. I think that gives you enough to get started on them.
So when are you going to open up the homework?
Let me check. I think I was in the middle of building that out. I don't know if I got all the questions on there.